Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99 and turn every night into game show night. By Game Show Forensics. Join host Robert McKee and his crack team of forensic game show scientists as they take you on the deepest dives imaginable in a quest to analyze the most detailed minutia of game shows nobody else dares to, or cares to, investigate. Nothing is too whimsical for examination, no semantics too absurd for the research extremists at GameShowForensics.com. Parental discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, The Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury. Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is produced in partnership with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, one of the largest history museums in the United States, and one of the leading museums serving families with highly interactive exhibits and programs. Since 1968, the Strong Museum has been dedicated to exploring the ways in which play encourages learning, creativity, and discovery, and how it illuminates cultural history. And their National Archives of Game Show History. Founded by industry veterans Bob Bowden and Howard Blumenthal, the archive is home to thousands of artifacts representing over 80 years of broadcasting, including props, set designs, video interviews with game show professionals, and other iconic elements from the history of television at play. For more information about the National Archives of Game Show History or the Strong National Museum of Play, visit museumofplay.org or call area code 585-263-2700.
Blue 35.
Tell us about yourself, would you?
Tell us something about you.
For any new viewers, won't you tell us again about yourself?
We've met before, but let's meet again. Tell us about
What
yourself.
else can you tell us about yourself?
Perhaps you'd fill us in again and tell us about yourself.
The music show capital of the world, and the RFD TV, the theater. It's time for the Jimmy Sturr Show, featuring this week's special guest, Matt and Elaine, our polka dancers, plus from the sunshine state of Florida, the Calhoun twins, Jack and Jerry. Let's say hello right now to Jimmy Sturr.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Sturr, and I'm a musician, the band leader of the Jimmy Sturr Orchestra, and we've been fortunate enough to have won 18 Grammy Awards, and I've even been on some television shows that we're going to talk about. And I always have lived in a village of Florida, New York.
You and your orchestra were the only polka act to ever appear on the Grand Ole Opry, and I understand that that was a very significant event. I'd love to hear your experiences with the Grand Ole Opry. It seems like such an achievement.
Well, it was, Chris. It's one of the highlights of my career because no other band has ever been on it. And I'm saying that with trumpets and saxes because they are not allowed on it. So, with guitars you can, but we're the only band. We've been on 4 times. And, it was incredible. In fact, one of the stories, the first time we went on, at that time they had what they call the Nashville Network, which was a big TV station. And on the station was every night they had a show, and the host was Ralph Emery. So they used to invite me all the time to be on the show. So this one time we had just recorded our first album with Willie Nelson. So when they asked me to do it, they said, they ended it with, by the way, if you'd like to bring Willie with you, you can. So I called Willie up on his bus. He said, sure, I'd like to do that. So he did. And then the next day I get a telephone call from the Grand Ole Opry that I hear you're going to be on the Nashville Network. We'd like to have you on the Opry the next night. And, by the way, if you want to bring Willie, you can. So, unbeknownst to me, I call Willie back. He says, yeah, I'd like to do that. But what's funny? Willie, he lived in Nashville for a long time. And he didn't really get along with the musical people there because they wanted him to sound one way, and he didn't want to sound that way. He wanted to sound the way he does now. So he never would do the Opry, and he wouldn't do the National Network. So I didn't think anything of it. So we get to the TNN, first of all, National Network, and we were supposed to have a sound check at 12 noon. And they said, well, it was about 5 minutes to 12. Willie's not going to show up. He's done that to us before. And I didn't know why or anything. So I said, no, he'll be here. About 3 minutes to 12, in comes his tour bus. And everybody just went crazy. And that night we did the National Network, Ralph Emery's television show. And it was just so successful. So now the next night we do the Opry. And we go on to the Opry. And Willie and I had this figured out. We were doing one of the songs that we had recorded on the album, the CD, and I would sing the first verse, and then the band would play, and then coming from backstage, Willie would walk out singing, and they didn't really tell anybody that he was going to be there. They didn't advertise that he was going to be a guest. But sure enough, I went out and sang it. The band played it, and then all of a sudden in the background you hear, "There is a tavern in the town," and of course out comes Willie. We couldn't even hear ourselves play. The place went so crazy. And back then, with flash bulbs were going off. It was just an incredible feeling. And so that was our first experience with Willie and on the Grand Ole Opry.
What a wonderful experience. I am a relative.
It was.
I'm sure. I'm a relative outsider when it comes to polka music. I would say that my main source of familiarity with that type of music is Weird Al Yankovic. I had a best friend when I was younger who was a massive Weird Al fan. My wife is a fan as well. And so I grew up hearing a lot of polka renditions of popular songs, which is a hallmark of Weird Al's albums. How, in your eyes, how has the younger generation taken up the mantle of polka awareness? Is there any danger of that type of music sort of becoming a lost art as the years go on?
Well, it might be. I don't know. It's still very popular. Back years and years ago, I could see it changing a little bit. Because if somebody said to me, "Who follows polkas?" I'd have to say to them, from 8 to 80, because the young kids, the middle age, and the older people did. Now it's sort of getting up where it's the older people, and that's why I started recording with guys like Willie Nelson, the Oak Ridge Boys, Mel Tillis, and Alison Krauss, and people like that. Because not that I wanted to be a country act, I didn't, but I wanted to have the outside of the polka field. I wanted them to hear the polkas and what they sounded like and how much fun they are.
Yeah, that
and
crossover
it really worked
appeal.
out for me.
Right.
Exactly. And Willie's done actually 5 CDs with our band. The Oak Ridge Boys, just a whole bunch of them have all done, Porter Wagner, Bill Anderson, Bobby Vinton. They've all done CDs with our band. And the reason was just if I could get the outside people to hear polka, that a majority would enjoy it. And it worked, and I started playing all the casinos around the country, including, but we used to do Vegas. We could sell Vegas out all the time, or we go to Atlantic City, and then some of these other obscure casinos that people, you wouldn't really, like out into Minnesota and Michigan, and even down into we were down into Mississippi and places like that playing where polka bands never appeared down there, and we got the opening to do those kind of things. And then we started doing, like with Willie, we went out on tour. We'd be doing Farm Aid with Willie, and new people would hear the music and they say, gee, this is pretty good. This is a lot of fun. And that was my thinking behind recording with these guys.
Sure. And I think any opportunity for people to hear what you're doing is an opportunity to propagate that interest and that love of that kind of music, because it is a very gregarious and fun and like you said, from 8 to 80, anyone can dance and enjoy and laugh and have fun. And it seems like that is what you and your orchestra specialize in, is fun.
Oh yeah, sure. And we play, and we don't only play polka. I mean, we just do everything. In fact, one of the members of the band, his name is Chris Caffery. Chris Caffery is a guitar player with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. He's like the lead man, and he'll be with us for 10 months. For 2 months, November, December, of course, he's out performing with Trans-Siberian, but he's with us the other 10 months of the year. And, we do a lot of rock music, featuring him. And, we use 3 trumpets and 3 saxes. And you put it all together, the sound is pretty good.
I'm glad that you mentioned country music, because when I think about country music, I think about the sort of polarizing opinions that a lot of country music fans have when it comes to the old stuff versus the new stuff. There are people who love new country music, and then there are people who love people like Billy Joe Shaver and Johnny Cash and, that generation. Does polka share that commonality with country? Are there fans who prefer the old polka to the new, or has the quality been pretty consistent?
Well, nowadays, when I was growing up, of course, I liked, the bigger band. And when I say bigger band in polkas, 8-9 piece band was considered a big band. Nowadays, almost the majority, all the polka bands are either 5, mainly 5, sometimes a 6-piece band. So it's a completely different sound now than it was when I was growing up. And I think the reason is because, a lot of people can't afford like an 8 or a 10-piece band. I mean, I'm lucky. We tour with a 12-piece orchestra, and I'm, I play too much almost, I mean, we're out playing all the time.
Sure.
And I think, so I don't know whether people would, I think they tend to listen to the 5-piece bands more than they would like our band. Although we just pack them no matter where we go. We're fortunate that way.
And the size of the orchestra and the instruments, is that the extent to which technology or the world of new instruments has crept into the world of polka? I think about other genres of music, and I think about how computers and electronics, cheap electronics, have brought about this sort of revelation in terms of new instruments and new ways of doing things. Has that realm touched polka at all in your experience?
No, the only part I would think that it touches us would be in sound. In other words, the sound companies themselves. Where growing up, a band would have had 2 microphones, maybe 3 microphones, the most. Now, all the instruments are mic'd up. But I don't think any more than that. As far, I'm sure you get your computerized pianos and stuff like that. And I don't know whether they're in use that much in the polka field. So I would say, it's not that good. It wouldn't work that well in the polka field. It would maybe if the polka bands were playing sort of an American style, ballads and stuff like that, it would probably work. But as far as new instruments and stuff, I don't think that really gets into the polkas.
That makes sense. Polka seems like a very traditional style of music. It seems like
it is.
It's very aware of its roots, right?
It is. I mean, there's different styles. Some are played faster, some are played slower. There's what they call like a Slovenian style polka, and that features a lot of accordion. They'll have accordion rhythm, and sometimes they'll have a tenor sax player, but they won't have trumpets or anything like that. And then they have what they call like a Chicago style, which is played a lot slower, and it's got it'll feature a concertina as much as it does an accordion. And then a band like ours it's horns, it's trumpets, saxes. Of course, we have the accordion. We carry a fiddle player and a rhythm section. And it's just that and that would be considered like the Eastern style.
One of my favorite aspects of what we're doing right now, these interviews and this podcast, is learning about not only the person I'll be talking to, but their context and what they're about. And I was happy to learn a lot about polka music. For the longest time, I thought polka was a purely Polish art form, but it doesn't originate in Poland. It originates in the Czech Republic.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, the Polish people picked it up here in America, especially, more than the Czech people did, or, and it became really a traditional Polish style, although it is not their music.
Right. And I think about the effect or the impact that polka has had on various cultures. My mom works at a factory in Connecticut. She's a supervisor there. She's been there for about 30 years, and she worked with a lot of people of Mexican descent. And so I remember when I was younger going to birthday parties for her coworkers. She would bring me, and I'd, have cake and dance and have fun. And thinking back, the music that they play is very reminiscent, I would say probably a direct offshoot of polka music. It's written in that sort of 2/4 time. There's a lot of accordion. The speed is, and it's fascinating to me that I love that this type of music has such far-reaching influence.
Oh yeah. Well, let me tell you, I've reached out into what that kind of music that you're talking, which is Tex-Mex. That's one way. And
sure.
I play in Texas, and I hear that music a lot. And I've got I think 3 or 4 albums, CDs, with a man named Flaco Jimenez. Now Flaco is like the grandfather of that Tex-Mex music, and he's done several albums with our band, and we feature him on the button box accordion, and he's tremendous. And he's been on several of our Grammy award-winning albums.
As an orchestra, or I'll say as a performer, and maybe there's no such thing as what I'm about to say, but as a performer, how do you deal with an audience that's not as receptive as you'd like for them to be? I think about weddings and DJs.
I take an intermission.
Oh, is that what you do? We'll be right back.
No.
That's a good idea. Well, I think about I think about weddings and DJs, and I think about how there are I DJ'd an event a couple of weeks ago, and I was having the time of my life, but there weren't as many people dancing as I would have liked for them to be. And I think about polka, and it seems to be a type of music that really feeds the energy of the people listening and dancing.
You're right.
They can feed off of that.
Yeah, well, I agree. You know what I would do? I would probably change the style of music. I might do some rock music, might do some dance music, and then get back into another polka. I'd probably try to break the ice, doing it that way. And usually that type of thing, it usually works.
Sure. And I'm sure with the years of experience you've had and just the caliber of performances you've been able to put on over the years, you're pretty well versed and what to do when it's not going the way you want it to go.
That's true.
Sure. I hear a lot of activity behind you. I hear phones ringing, people talking, and I love it. How
Well,
busy?
you're talking to me in my office.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that you have several other sort of avenues of interest other than just polka. I mean, I imagine this level of success, you're doing so many other things. How busy is your world these days?
Well, at one time, I owned a local radio station. I owned a restaurant. I owned a liquor store. I owned a travel agency, a record company, plus the orchestra. So that sort of keeps me busy.
I'm surprised you have the time to talk to me right now.
And we do cruises. We'll take the band out and invite some other bands to go join us, and we do very well on those. We sell out those cruises. We've been sold out for about 2 months, and our cruise isn't until January. And probably most of our travel agency actually is next door to my office, which is where we're talking now. But we'll have almost 900 people, and it's sold out.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful that that there is still that appeal. It doesn't seem, just from the sort of cursory research I've done in preparation for talking to you, it doesn't seem like the appeal of polka has really gone away. It seems like it's really found its audience.
Well, we don't get. You're right, and we don't get the exposure that we should be getting. And I see what happens. People, polkas, that my grandfather used to do that, or my mother and father used to do that, and they're embarrassed to say they like that kind of music. And I know that's what happens. I mean, we can draw. If we go out, we can draw. 4,000 or 5,000 people. We go to Texas, we'll draw 15,000 a night in Texas. But you don't hear about that. You don't hear it on radio. You don't see it on television or hear it on television. So we do take a beating like that.
Sure, it doesn't have that mass exposure.
Exactly.
In that quest to gain that exposure, have you found yourself having to resist the urge to make videos for YouTube or TikTok or join any of those sort of new cultural trends?
We have that. Sure, I have a lot of that on social media. There's a lot of the stuff. You probably saw the one when I was on To Tell the Truth. That was probably on. I don't know what it was on. It was on a bunch of them.
Yeah, I think I did see it on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, we do that all the time. And we could get a lot of exposure like that.
Now, you appeared on To Tell the Truth in the mid-'70s. I don't know that I have the exact year, but am I in the ballpark around maybe 75,
Yeah,
76?
I think you are. Yeah, it's between. I think it is. Yeah, 70. Yeah, between 75 and 79, someplace. I'm not sure.
Sure.
That was the first time with Gary Moore. Gary Moore was the host.
He was wonderful. Yeah. He's one of my favorite hosts.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just did it about 4 years ago, again. And they kept asking me to do it, and I kept saying, "Nah, I don't want it." I didn't really want to go all the way to California, and they must have asked me. I'll bet at least 6 or 7 times. Finally, I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. We're playing Texas." I said, "If you could work it out where I can fly from Texas to L.A. and I'll tape it on a Monday, I'll do it." They said, "Fine, we'll do it." And they did, and that's how I did the other one.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The second one, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that first experience, and really I should explain just for anyone listening who isn't immediately familiar with To Tell the Truth, because it hasn't, that version of the show that you are on, which I think is just the pinnacle of that particular show, hasn't been on in a while. You get 3 people. One of them is a fascinating figure who has a story to tell. The other 2 are imposters pretending to be that person, and the team has to withstand a sort of cross-examination by these celebrities, and then the celebrities try to figure out which one of you is the real one. And you stand to win some money if the imposters fool the celebrities.
Right.
And I've talked to a couple other people who have been on To Tell the Truth, various versions of the show, and I'm always fascinated by the process through which they get those imposters trained. I'd love to hear what you remember about that experience. What did you have to give of yourself in order for the imposters to do a convincing job of pretending.
Well, I think what they did, I think they told them who I was and what I'd done and stuff like that. And a couple of them were musically involved when I was on. So the one I think was I think she was a violinist in one of the symphony orchestras, and the other was a professor in one of the colleges. And so they could pretty much ad lib around that. What's going on, and that's how they did it. In fact, I did it the first time I went on. They guessed they did. I think all of them did, all but one person. This time, only one person did guess me, and which is pretty cool. I think that's pretty good.
That is good. That's a good team, and that's good money as well. In terms of the prize money for the show. Yeah.
But it costs that much. Yeah. Go ahead.
When you were on the show in the 70s, did you look at that experience as an opportunity to promote your orchestra and your type of music? Did you look at it as an opportunity to sort of get polka out there to a mass audience?
Yeah, well, I'm sure it helped. Now whether I thought that way back then, I don't even remember.
Sure.
But it was so long ago and went by so fast. I don't remember. And they sort of they control you. You got to watch what you say. It's just like on Wheel of Fortune and stuff like that. I mean, those guys control what you can say and what you don't say. And they did. Not that I would have said any more than what I did say, but it's very well controlled.
Oh, sure. Well, I've been fortunate enough to have appeared on 6 game shows in the past 10 or so years. And so, yes, I am familiar with how they, anything that seems impromptu or sort of off the cuff is probably very well rehearsed or very well scripted. And I think that a lot of casual audiences may not realize that.
It is. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
When you're performing as an orchestra, and I'm going to jump back and forth between To Tell the Truth and you yourself, because I'm equally fascinated by both. When you're performing, when your orchestra is performing, how much of your performance is choreographed beforehand?
We've been together so long, none of it. In fact, I mean, I don't have like a set list or anything like that. We've been together so long, you got to see the way I do it. But there's a way that the song is over and I cut the band. As I'm cutting it, I'll turn around and sort of cut the whole band. Well, I'm really telling them the next song. So, I'll cut them off. They'll tell, as I'm saying that, come back to the mic, talk a little bit, whatever I'm going to say, and then we're ready to play the next song. So there's not much choreography at all in my band.
What a sense of comfort it must be to perform with people that you know so well that in just about any situation you can get up there and bring the house down.
Yeah, well, that's fun. It's a great feeling.
Absolutely.
And it's funny. The one guy that's been with me like 45 years. I mean, just what I'm saying on the microphone, he knows what that next song is going to be. And he'll tell the band, there's certain things I'll say about something, and he'll tell the band next, what we're playing next, and then it's a good feeling. The guy, I've had the guys in the band, there's a couple of them over there over 40 years. Most of them all been there over at least 20. So we've been together a long time.
Jimmy, I'd love to know what you remember about that first experience in the 70s as a contestant on To Tell the Truth. I know that I talked to some people who remember all the details of these things that happened so long ago, and most people don't. And that's perfectly okay, because I know we're talking about probably about almost 50 years ago. What do you remember about that experience?
Well, it's funny. I don't remember a whole bunch, In fact, I thought, was his name Bill Cullen? I think was like, I thought he was one of the, I thought he was on the show, but maybe he wasn't, because I've seen a playback recently of that show and I didn't see him there. So maybe he wasn't there. But anyway, this is terrible. I went all the way to California and realized I forgot my wallet. I went all the way to California and didn't have a penny on me. And I'll tell you what the most embarrassing part about it. Of course they supply food and your overnight accommodation. So I didn't need any money for that. But the guy that picked me up at the airport or brought me from the studio to the airport, I couldn't give him a tip. I felt bad. And I remember that I left my wallet home. That was a bad experience, but.
So in terms of your level of fame at that time, were you famous enough at that point that it was that much more embarrassing for you?
No, not then. No,
Sure.
I mean, I'd had probably a couple of gold albums, but
Is that all?
nationwide and stuff. Yeah. But he didn't know who I was except I was a contestant on there. That's all.
Sure. I've talked to so many contestants who have had so many stories to relay about the way that they're treated as contestants backstage by the crew and by the people that are in charge of making sure they go where they need to go and stand where they need to stand.
Yeah.
And
I remember that. Sure. I mean, both times I was on, everybody just treated you so nice. The only bad thing was you had to be there. I'm going to say like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And and my show was the last show that they were taping, and they never taped me until like 8 o'clock that night.
Oh, wow. You were there all day.
But, so we had to sit around all that time, but it was not, we had snacks. They just treated, every once in a while somebody would come up and say, everything okay? Or you need anything? And, so that part was good. I remember the one guy that I got talking to, he was the handler of Punxsutawney Phil out there in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
Pennsylvania.
About an hour away from me. Yep.
And I had a guest. Yeah, not too far. And he was a nice guy, very nice. And I talked with him quite a lot. And, he's the guy that handles Punxsutawney Phil.
I would love to know how you were treated on that second version of the show, because you mentioned that they had asked you several times, and they were very accommodating in flying you from where you were in Texas to Los Angeles to do the show because they wanted you on the show that badly. So I imagine that they must have really rolled out the red carpet for you as a privileged guest of that show. They really wanted you there.
Well, I don't know, and I'm sure they treated everybody the same. But the reason that I kept turning it down is because that flight, man, just that air flight all the way to California, and I had just gotten finished. We had just played. I think it was like maybe 6-8 months before that. They started asking me. We played Hawaii. The band. We played on that cruise in Hawaii.
Right.
So we flew direct from Newark to Honolulu. It was a nightmare. I mean,
what
just
a
the
journey.
idea. It was like 12 and a half hours. And I said, I don't want to ever fly again. And that was, I always had that in the back of my mind. Well, LA, it's still 4.5 hours, 5 hours, whatever it was. And, that's why I kept turning it down. And I thought, well, if I'm in Texas, it would only be, I thought an hour and a half, 2 hours, but it was even more than that. I think it was like 2.5, 3 hours.
It's still quite a journey, sure, especially if you don't want to fly. I mean, I can imagine. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It was.
So let's talk a little bit about that newer version of the show. This was on ABC a couple years ago, and the format is more or less the same. You have your team of 3. You are the guy, and the other 2 people are pretending to be the guy, and there's that same sort of cross-examination. How did you find yourself preparing for this appearance? Do you prepare for this appearance? Is there anything that you do to sort of get ready to play this game?
No, not at all. The one little funny thing, I mean, I don't remember who the guests were, except for one guy, and I can't remember his name, but he was on, I think he was on Law and Order all the time, and I don't remember. I remember Anderson was the host.
Right, Anthony Anderson, right.
Anthony Anderson. But the other guy, and I don't remember his name. So anyway, the first thing I thought about when I went on stage is I wear a diamond ring. And I took the diamond ring off and put it in my pocket because I thought, well, if they see that, they're going to know. They're going to assume maybe I would be the one.
Sure.
So, you know, everything was done, and they went into a commercial, and I put the diamond ring back on after everything was done, after they had, you know, guessed who Jimmy Sturr was and stuff. I put it back. The guy laughed. He sat there and laughed his ass off. The guy from Law and Order. In fact, he came over and he commented on it. He made a couple comments. A nice guy, very nice guy, but I can't remember his name.
I love hearing that these are positive experiences. One of the commonalities among all the interviews that I've done for this show, and we'll be celebrating our 100th episode this year, one of the commonalities I found is that no matter whether the contestant wins or loses, or they have, you know, something unusual that happened to them at the taping, no matter what, it's always fun. And it's always fun to reminisce and talk about. And it sounds like you feel the same way about these experiences.
Oh, I do. I mean, once I was there, and they put me in a nice hotel. It was very nice. It was just a small hotel, and it was just fun from the time I got there. Oh, they did lose my luggage, by the way.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I had to hang around the airport with the driver. I was there. I bet I was there over an hour. They finally found it. It was on the plane, but they put it in a different location. But they did find it eventually. But I had to hang around for at least an hour trying to find it. But anyway, we went to the hotel, and they picked me up the next morning, and that's when I hung around all day. But it was good because I was talking with a lot of those guys, and that were not contestants, whatever you call them, on the show.
Yeah, the challenge imposters, whatever you call them. Yeah.
Right. So that part was great.
Sure. In the experiences that I've had in television, one of my favorite parts of the process is that initial walk into the facility and sitting in the makeup chair and getting the briefing on what's going to happen while they're putting pancake makeup on here to your left. There's a paper to sign here to your right, people all around you, that energy. And it, as somebody who is not a celebrity, it makes me feel like a celebrity for just those few minutes. I don't know whether you consider yourself a celebrity or not, but I wonder if that feeling ever gets old. Are you ever not enchanted by that part of this process, that thing where they get you ready to be on television?
I mean, it's pretty cool, because my goal is always to have my own national television show. So, that part of what you're talking about is all part of this. In fact, finally, I do have my own nationally weekly TV show, and I'm on Friday nights on RFD TV, and I get like 1.2 million people watch me.
It's excellent.
Watch the show.
Excellent.
It's not just it's the whole band. So it's like a Lawrence Welk type thing, an updated Lawrence Welk show. Where I feature the guys. All the guys are known when we go out and play. Because the people watch them on television, they know who they are. So that part is pretty cool. Now getting makeups, after a while it gets a little tiresome.
Sure, it can take a long time and get a little hot, and having people so close to you sometimes gets a little claustrophobic. Well, right now we are two people who have always dreamed of having their own national TV show. That's always been my aspiration as well. And your story resonates with me to the degree that type of show outside of what you do doesn't really exist anymore. There is no more Lawrence Welk show or that type of thing that is sort of exposed to a mass audience. So to take it upon yourself to make it and do it is, I think speaks to the creative spirit. I identify with that, very much. Even this thing that we're doing now, there are interviews that don't happen in the way that I would want them to happen. So I kind of do it the way that I would want to hear it. It's a little more conversational, and in a way that doesn't really have space to exist in the current landscape. Yeah. So I love what you're doing in that way.
Well, there's an opening there. I mean, Lawrence Welk, look how many years he went on after his show was taken off national TV. I mean, he was on PBS probably for 20 more years.
Yeah, reruns. Yep.
And everybody still, talks about, not everyone, but especially, look at, I know that most of my viewers, they're older people. There's no doubt about it. But, I often think, what would I rather have? 50 old people watching or 5 young people watching?
Right.
That's my thinking. So and that's why I think it's so successful. I've been on for almost 20, 23, 24 years.
It's great that that audience still exists. When you were on To Tell the Truth in the 70s, how much TV experience had you and or the band had up to that point? That wasn't your first time ever on TV, was it?
No, no. Well, the band wasn't there; it was just me. But
Right.
I've had a lot of I used to be the host of a lot of telethons, and the band would be on that. I used to be on a bunch of shows that were out of the New York City area. The talk shows and stuff like that. Not the late night shows, but they used to have different shows during the day. Now they still have them out of New York, and I used to be on them quite often. I used to be on the Regis Philbin. I was on there. Oh God, probably 4 or 5 times, and they were always fun. He was always a character.
Regis Philbin, from a broadcasting perspective, is someone that I have always admired. I've always admired the way he did what he did. What do you remember about working with Regis Philbin?
Just that he was fun. He was a nice guy and a lot of fun. He'd get in there and he'd get in the middle of the band, grab my clarinet, fake that he was playing it. He just set it up and make believe he was playing it. Little things like that. And then he'd get out and dance with somebody in the audience. He'd dance the polka, stuff like that.
Sure.
He was
just
a good guy.
Right. And that was his style, I think. He used to just amplify whatever fun was happening around him, because he was very irreverent and he was very loud and fun. Fun is just the best word to describe.
He was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
and
that
I used to play every year at Yankee Stadium. A dear friend of mine played for the Yankees. In fact, he lived at my house the first year he was with the Yankees. And I don't know whether you would remember, but I know all your listeners would remember Phil Necro. The knuckleballer.
I've heard the name.
Okay, well he's in the Hall of Fame, but he played for the Braves, and then he was traded to the Yankees. And we'd play Yankee Stadium, and he'd get out there and dance the polka, because he was Polish and loved polka music. And before the game, he'd get out there and dance like crazy. But these are just little things that that I remember that that were a lot of fun to me.
In talking to you, Jimmy, and thank you again for taking the time to to chat with me. In talking to you, I get the sense that performing and playing polka music with your orchestra is something that you want to do for the rest of your life. Is that the plan? There isn't a plan to tone it down or retire at any point, is it? It seems like you're having the time of your life.
God, no. No, well, I have toned it down somewhat. We used to do like 160 dates a year. We go to Europe, we play all over the country, and we have the tour buses and stuff like that. But in the last few years, actually, ever since COVID, I thought, Jesus, it's not bad having a Saturday night off, So now I'm down to about 60 dates a year, maybe 65, and that's good.
And as long as you're having the time of your life, which again, it seems like that's what you're doing, I imagine that it'll never get old.
It never will be.
Tell Us About Yourself, Conversations with Game Show Contestants, is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Christian Carrion, from my studio in beautiful downtown Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. Co-executive producer Cory Anotado. Researcher Chuck Donegan. This has been a production of BuzzerBlog, the most popular game show website in the world, in partnership with the National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. For more information, visit museumofplay.org. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Christian Carrion. Good night. Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99 and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. Join host Robert McKee and his crack team of forensic game show scientists as they take you on the deepest dives imaginable in a quest to analyze the most detailed minutia of game shows nobody else dares to, or cares to, investigate. Nothing is too whimsical for examination, no semantics too absurd for the research extremists at GameShowForensics.com. Parental discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury.